On today's show, I am joined by friend of the podcast, Tyler Jones, for a two-part conversation. This is part one coming to you, and it's arriving right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1611 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday here in mid-December. And today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use promo code LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. And also at the top of the podcast, I should tell you, make it your first listen each and every day on this podcast, anywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And with all of that out of the way, I'm not even going to do the full intro like I normally would. I'm just going to bring him in right now. Tyler Jones, welcome back to the podcast. It's a special Sunday edition, and thank you for being here, my friend.
Brad, I got to always start the pod off with a question for you.
Okay, bring it on.
Do the Falcons still ruin your weekend?
Oh, that's a loaded question. They don't ruin my weekend right now because my expectations are very low. When they
you're already doomed. You already were like, this season's a wash.
Well, yeah. Today, so obviously we're recording this podcast Sunday night after the Falcons game. The Falcons, if you're not a Falcons fan, lost in hilariously on brand fashion to the Panthers. But no, I mean, if I had thought they were going to be like really, really good this year, I would be crushed. But I never thought that. So they kind of are who we thought they were in a lot of ways.
Isn't it funny though that the Falcons finally, for the first time in like what, 2 decades, or no, really since the second half of the Super Bowl run, they have a defense, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I get annoyed, and we'll stop. We'll stop. I promise. But I get annoyed. I sent a snarky tweet after the game about how the defense is really like clearly overachieved and has like played well this year, and they're top 10 in scoring defense, and they can't score, which is the most deeply ironic thing for an offense first head coach and a bunch of top 10 skill players. But the Falcons, Tyler, I'm glad you're off the narcotic. I'll just say that to you. I'm glad you're off. I'm mostly off. I'm not actually off, but I'm okay. I'm okay. All that said, let's talk about the Hawks. We were going to talk about this anyway, but it's actually kind of a round number. The Hawks have played 25 games, so it's kind of appropriate they're coming on for sort of a check-in on the state of things. We're going to dive into some stuff, as we always do when you are here. But I have to ask you for the general vibe now. They're 10-15. Of course, they're infamously 2-8 since Jalen went down. They're 8-7 with Jalen, 2-8 without him. That seems to be pretty indicative of what's going on here. But I'll stop. How are you feeling right now as resident ombudsman of the Hawks right now?
Brad, I feel like, I don't know if I said this on the last time I was on, or I meant to say it, but I was like, Jalen, I'm not sure if I said it. Jalen was like, could not miss any time because they had no backup for him. I feel like that thought wave was in my head, but I never said it. Maybe I didn't get to it, but like Hawks are clearly going through the fact that they don't have a backup power forward. And so like every game is just a shootout and they're just losing. And like, they're not losing, like they're not getting washed because their offense is just that good, but it's just, I mean, we saw it against the Cleveland Cavaliers, like they can't get a stop no matter, they just don't have, to me, it's like they don't have the personnel to consistently get stops unless they're playing, with, two bigs. If they're not doing that, like it's just whether it's Capella or Kongwu, they have nobody behind those two guys when they step up on the floor, regardless of the scheme they're playing. Even in drop coverage, the big has to come out, to contest the shot. If they do that, the offensive rebound, like the lane is just filled because they don't have the guys behind them, Dre, Sadiq Bey, DeJounte Murray, and Trae Young. Like they just don't have the requisite athleticism to compete against the other teams in the NBA, and they're already a smaller team considering their backcourt. So it's like it's one of those things where you're frustrated, because of how well they're playing in certain areas, especially on offense. Like they're playing some really good basketball. It's going underreported how well they're playing on offense. But it kind of doesn't matter because like their first shot defense isn't that bad, but if you can't grab the rebound, it doesn't matter. And that's where they're at right now. Like they can't grab the rebound. And that's leading to other breakdowns of guys not, playing with the level of force and intensity they need on defense because they feel like they feel defeated when they step on the floor. Like sometimes that's what it feels like, where it's like we're not competing physically because we know if we do, it doesn't matter. We're still not gonna get the rebound. That's what the Cavaliers game felt like. Like the second half, they were competing and like they were playing physical, hard-nosed defense, and it didn't matter because like these guys, they're just not the athletes that you need to be able to play small ball basketball. I mean, honestly, we take this back to the Wayback Machine. Hawks are suffering from the same problems they've always suffered from during this Trae Young era when it's one big. Whether you look at the whether if it's Capella and it's four smaller players, or Collins with four smaller players, or Conley with four smaller players, they're not getting stops. These lineups have never gotten stops just because the construction of the team, like they don't, other than Jalen, they don't have that super athlete that you need to really make quote unquote small ball lineups work. Like they don't have the centers on this team don't have the support that they need in order to get the best out of them. I don't think it's coincidence that Okongwu and Capella both started playing a lot better when Quinn started playing them more together so that they could get their confidence and able to challenge shots and able to, be havoc creators on defense. Like if this Hawks team was filled, like if DeAndre was a better athlete or Sadiq Bey was a better athlete, they were the same player, but just a better athlete, maybe any scheme would work. But as is, their front court just isn't, outside of their centers, aren't athletic enough at the moment to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis of what the issues are, and I'm trying to kind of be typical to me, kind of nuanced about like it's not like they're just drawing dead without Jalen Johnson. Like I think people have turned Jalen Johnson into like LeBron James as to how impactful he is.
I mean, he's LeBron James for this team. Brad, you joke,
I understand.
But like
that's what I'm
saying. He kind of
saying.
is for this team.
Right. So that's I think
you
did a good job there. I'm talking about like it's not, this is part of it is that he's good for sure.
Yeah.
And part of it is that he's irreplaceable more so than that he's he is really good. But like there's no replication there. Like it's gonna sound funny, like they have an easier way to replace even Trae than Jalen, because DeJounte is not Trae, but DeJounte has carried an offense before. Like he's been the number one option before. He's comfortable doing that. He's not nearly as good of it as Trae is, but he can at least do it in small ways. There's nobody that's like Jalen Johnson on this team. Like Bay's a solid player. Hunter, pros and cons, all that stuff, but like they just don't have that replication. And I'm glad you brought the two bigs thing because we're gonna get into that too. But I mean, it's not like I wish Jalen had been playing at that level for longer, so people had kind of noticed it more. People in Atlanta know, but like I think especially when and we'll stay away from the national conversation for the most part here, but I think that it's like, oh, Jalen Johnson's out, it's fine, and it's like, no, I mean a little bit half step deeper. It's like Jalen Johnson. Again, he's not irreplaceable, but they don't have anybody that does what he does. And with the way they built this roster, you can argue, and I would, that it's, they need to do a better job of building the roster and like building the depth out and using some of the resources to get more guys, not necessarily like Jalen, but more guys who can prevent, like, I think it was kind of foreseeable in some ways that if Jalen had gone down, they didn't really have a way to replace him. So it's like,
Brad, I was on the Jalen Johnson needs to be starting from the preseason because I saw this team and I was like, Hunter and Bay they have their differences, but functionally they're the same basketball player. They are offense first wings. They're not bigs. Like they're not havoc creators defensively either. They're more like station to station. Hunter's better at Bay than this of like do your jobness on defense, but they're not like difference makers. We're not talking about, Jaden McDaniel. Shout out to Andrew Kelly with that one. But like they're not a McDaniels brother. Somebody who's going to come in and just destroy, an offensive possession. Like that's not what Hunter and Bay are. And so, like to me, like when we joke about the LeBron James, but like Jalen kind of is like he more or less is. He's the big, physical, sized, skilled offensive player with havoc creation on defense. Like you can't just, no team can suffer a loss like that. And the Hawks, with the moves they made in the offseason, we don't need to delve too much into it. But with I would say even the lack of moves they've made, Jalen's all they got at the position, functionally at the quote unquote power forward position. Jalen's the only player they have who can play alongside a center and can play also could play center himself in certain iterations of the team. There's nobody else on except maybe even Mo Gay, but Mo Gay is also hurt. I don't think Mo Gay would have quote unquote helped the team, but I do think like not even having the option, like not even having like Quinn not even be able to be like, okay, I just need a 7-footer out there alongside my center to just calm some stuff down, just to get some size. Right, he throwing out lineups of Garrison Matthews, Wesley Matthews. So Bogdanovich and Trae Young, like what is how are they supposed to get stops with that lineup?
Right. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is the largest DFS platform in North America and also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And at PrizePicks, you pick 2 to 6 players and then choose whether they have more or less than a certain number of points, rebounds, assists, or other categories across other sports. And when it's 25 times money on your entries right now, you also have common projections across sports that includes 2 or more players from different sports, different leagues, pushed together in the same projection. And PrizePicks also has a huge selection of sports and stats types not offer anywhere else. They have projections on the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, and many more. And they have a reboot policy at PrizePicks as well. They're the only DFS platform with an injury insurance policy. I've really enjoyed checking out PrizePicks for quite some time now. And I dig in all the time to the NBA world as well as the NFL, college football, etc. And I certainly I recommend the experience at PrizePicks at the highest level. It's easy, it's fun, it's sort of intuitive, and I really enjoy digging in all the time. And the place to go to find PrizePicks and all of the exciting opportunities there is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use promo code LockedOnNBA for first time deposit match up to $100. One more time, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA when you get there. Check out daily fantasy sports made easy with PrizePicks. So I want to do this a little bit because on one hand, I think it can be lazy to just say the Hawks are too small. You know what I mean? Yeah. I hear that, especially about a Kongwu. Like, I don't want to do that conversation, but I get messages all the time and responses from people that just like say, "Oh, he's a power forward. He can't play center, etc." Because it's expressly because he's 6'8", and I get all that. Put that to the side. I'm not someone that says you have to have so much size, but I bring that up now because like they are so obviously too small. Without Jalen, and especially without Hunter, the games without Jalen and Hunter, it was even more hilarious because at least Hunter, he doesn't always play big, but Hunter is a 6'8", 220 pound. He's a large forward. He doesn't play like Jalen does, but like it was so stark without Hunter. But even then, they're just so small. And Quinn put it this way, and I know I've quoted it a few times, but like when they started playing Okongwu and Capella together, it was the necessity is the mother of invention thing. They never wanted to do that a lot. Like, I think it was an option. We saw it a little bit in the preseason. Like, they'll experiment with it. I don't think Quinn ever thought he was going to have to play or want to play Okongwu and Capella for 15 minutes and a half, which happened the other night. They played those guys like for most of a full half together, including like the whole fourth quarter. And it's because they're so small. I mean, player for player, they're already small in the backcourt, right? And that is a limiting factor. And then, I'm not someone who thinks that they can't win with Trae and DeJounte. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to acknowledge they are small in the backcourt. They already are that. So you can't afford to be
small. They're light as well. It's not just that they're small per se.
They are
light. That they're physically not big.
Right, because DeJounte is not short. I mean, he's not big for a 2, but DeJounte is 6'4". Like, he's legit. He's got length, but he's not physical by any means. Yeah. And then Trae is just Trae. He's very small. So you have those guys, and then you have your wing group. If you take Hunter away, Bogey is 6'5", maybe 6'6", and plays like a 2 guard.
Bogey's like 6'7", but he plays like a 2 guard.
But I mean, he's physically kind of strong, but he's not a physical defender. Garrison Matthews is 6'4", 6'5". Wes Matthews has been their backup power forward at times. Wes Matthews is maybe 6'5". Like he's a good defensive player, but he's like 36, 37 years old, and he's maybe 6'5". They brought up Seth Lunny, didn't play him, which I understand. Trent Forrest, who I like, is a 6'4" combo guard who doesn't really play offense. Patty Mills is 6'1". Like, they don't have anybody to go to, and it really is just stark. There was I can't remember which game it was right now because I'm blanking, but there was a game this week where Quinn kind of just said that in the post game, like very plainly, like kind of like looking around, like, you guys see what kind of size we're dealing with here, kind of thing. Like, he didn't say that, but the implication was like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you're just so small that you can't do anything. And yeah, Cleveland was so much bigger than the Hawks even without Evan Mobley. You know what I mean? If they had Evan Mobley, it would have been hilarious. Like, I don't know. It's
Dean Wade might as well think Kevin Love last.
Well, and Dean Wade is legitimate, like 6'8" or 9". Like, he's a pretty big guy, but he shouldn't be able to do what he was doing to you the other day against Cleveland. And I don't know. I do think that that's the long version. The short version is like, their defensive struggles. I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've seen this or not. People are starting to question Quinn, which is part of the deal when you lose games. I get that, fans. I mean, I really do think it's as simple as they don't have the defensive personnel. I think it's very, very simple. Are there nights, are there halves, are there quarters where they should play better than they have played? Sure, absolutely. I'm not saying otherwise. But objectively, they just don't have the defensive personnel. And it's even more stark without Jalen. I think he unlocks, to bring that whole conversation full circle, that his absence unlocks even more of what the issues already are. Mm-hmm. But they already have the same issues even with Jalen. It's just that with Jalen, they have more size and more athleticism. And again, we're talking about size now. It's also what you brought up earlier, his general like ranginess. They just don't have guys like that. Even there, I mean, again, DeJounte by like point guard standards is rangy and long. At the 2, he's not. Like, he's a very
he's normal. It's a slightly
he might be normal, and DeAndre Hunter is not like a crazy athlete at all at the small forward spot. No. Sadiq Bey is a below average athlete. He's physically beefy and strong, and he'll play hard. He'll be tough, but he's not rangy at all. Capella at this stage is not a super rangy guy. They just don't have like the side to side, even like high above the rim, any of that stuff. It just does. I'm not trying to put too much on Jalen, but it's just the reality.
Well, they do if they play, Okongwu and Capella together.
Well, that's why. Okay, so let's do that now.
It's one of those things where it's like Okongwu is a pretty good athlete and he can guard out on the perimeter.
Is, and they've done it.
Just go with that.
And
granted, they did it. They did it like they committed to it
when they had to,
and then
when they had to.
And then Capella plays 35 minutes once and is now hurt again. So
and that is part of the reason I think they have not done it more is because they know they can't get away with, and even Okongwu played like a 15-minute straight stint. Like, I know he's young, they don't want to have him play that many minutes in a row, and to have those guys stagger, I think this is me now. I think that they would be wise if they were going to invest in Okongwu playing more at the 4 in the absence of Jalen, to just have Bruno ready to play 12 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That way you don't have to full stagger Clint and Onyeka. The problem is they don't want to play Bruno and Clint, which I understand. That they shouldn't do that. But when you have basically you just have Clint play his normal role, his 28 minutes, 30 minutes a game. You have Onyeka play 10, 12 at center, and then the rest of his minutes at power forward, and then the rest of those minutes, whatever it is, 10 minutes or whatever, Bruno is more than capable. We saw that. I don't want to I'm not trying to stand Bruno, but he was very, very solid against Cleveland. Like he's a very competent backup center.
Bruno was really good at Cleveland because he was playing hard, playing physical, and he was creating options for Trae in ways that the other bigs don't, because he's willing to take a power dribble. If that, he's willing. He has
good ball skills and stuff like that.
He's willing to stand, not at the dunker spot, but in like the mid post area for a post touch, and then drive with physicality to the front of the rim in ways that Okongwu does sometimes, but he's more of the hook shot variety.
And Bruno likes doing that. Like that's like something
Bruno embraces the physicality, likes to move guys out of the way. And that's something that, Capella doesn't offer that, just that power dribble ability. So to me, I'm like, this is one where Quinn's just going to have to suck it up and just play bigger. And they're going to have to find a way to make the offense work.
And they kind of have.
The good thing is with the ways in which this team is shooting the basketball, from Trae, Bogey, even DeAndre, I think they can get away with playing bigger. It's not something you could have said last year with the same guys, but the levels to which Trae and Bogey in particular are shooting the basketball, you can probably get away. You also got Garrison Matthews, who's a very good shooter, coming off the bench as well. Hopefully when AJ Griffin, whenever he comes back, he's still a good shooter, as somebody you can put on two big lineups and still get the requisite spacing you need. And with Okongwu's improvement as a shooter, you put him at the 4, you'll live with teams are going to give him the open 3-pointer as an offense. You'll take that. You'll take the easy stuff if for no other reason. This goes back to what we talked about last year. As long as you shoot the ball, at some point they're going to have to defend you. As long as you don't hesitate, shoot the ball, you can become para-antage, where the percentage doesn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? And that's where Okongwu is right now, because he doesn't hesitate. Way,
a stat on that, he has taken multiple threes in 7 of the last 8 games.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming with Okongwu.
And he didn't shoot it well early on. I think he was 4 of his first 25 or something, pretty ugly. And to your point, they don't have to all go in. He shot better. And I think that this is a very simple observation, but I think that when they have him out there with Clint, I think Onyeka is being really told, really emphasized, you have to shoot. You have to. If you get the ball out there, if you're going to play with Clint, you have to fire away. And I think he's been more aggressive looking for a shot. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. As the weather gets colder, the NBA and NFL offers stay hot at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're a new customer, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 in your pocket in terms of bucks if your team wins. And beyond the awesome perks of signing up with FanDuel right now, they have all stuff you're looking for across the sports betting space. They have over-unders and money lines. They have point spreads, player props, future bets, game props. They have same-game parlays, live betting, and all the other offers that you're looking for in the sports betting space. And the app is also safe and secure at FanDuel. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NFL and the NBA, of course, but also the WNBA, college basketball, MLB when it's in season, and also futures right now on the baseball side, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, MMA, boxing. It is all there for you at FanDuel, and they have tons of Hawks options as well in advance of the game on Monday against Detroit, and well beyond that. Live bets when the game's going on, futures, player awards, etc. And now is the best possible time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel. And the place to go is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Check out the official sports partner of the Locked On Podcast Network with an offer that you will not want to miss. It's really an awesome offer. FanDuel.com/lockedon is the place to go. One more time, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL.
To me, it's helped his game. He's playing better because he's giving a defined role. Right. Hey, you got to be the shooter. And that's not what regardless of what people say, that isn't. Okongwu has struggled in his career. He's had his struggles where his role isn't defined, where he doesn't know when he's getting the ball. He doesn't know when he's getting his touches. Now I'm in the corner. I'm guaranteed to get the ball. I'm guaranteed. Yeah. And all I got to do is shoot it. I make these things in practice. I'm a good free throw shooter.
Yeah.
And you're also he's more involved. He's more involved in the game offensively, and then it leads to better play on defense. That's just how the game works. Basketball
and also, you're not asking him to play center next to a bunch of wings. For all the Onyeka stuff, again, we don't have to do this whole thing again, but him at center doesn't work with small wings who can't rebound. That's not gonna work. And I like Okongwu, I always have, but I think the theory of Okongwu at center involves an athletic, big power forward that kind of resembles someone like Jalen Johnson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another thing where I think it does make sense, especially right now without Jalen, to try Onyeka at the 4. I meant to say this last night, and I just forgot on the show. My guess as to why they didn't play Bruno and Okongwu together without Capella is that they just haven't practiced that. That's my best guess.
Yeah.
Is that those guys, Bruno, number one,
Bruno
teams don't practice during the season.
Flat out hasn't played.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He hasn't played with these guys.
Teams don't practice during the season. That's important to keep in mind for fans that don't really realize that teams do not practice very much during the season. That's just reality in the NBA. Bruno had played so little that he had to go to Quinn and ask to go play in College Park for a game just to get game reps. Quinn said last night that Bruno got tired because he's not played in a game. It's different to play in a game. It just is. So I think all that said, that's probably why they didn't try that last night. I still might have just thrown it out there and see if it worked. But I have a suspicion that is why they didn't do it, because they could have used it last night. And Hunter was back too, so maybe it was a little bit less dire. But I would have liked to see. I know Kevin was calling for it, and I would have liked to see it too.
I think next game either they need to go to that earlier or start Bruno.
And
just
by the way,
so
Capella's questionable for Mondays. People listening to this, Capella's questionable as we record this podcast, so he might play Mondays. We don't know. But I'm with you.
I'm saying this just so that they can get a feel for it. You can get away with it early in the game too if it's early enough. And
the Pistons play two bigs a lot, and it's a pretty good time to try it.
And honestly, more importantly, leaving the Pistons out of it.
Yeah.
Hawks can't afford to be a team that's giving up offensive rebounds like this. This roster is not. No team can survive. The Cavaliers game. Okongwu's, they're trying to get the ball at Donovan Mitchell's hands. They get it out of his hands, but they have no reputation in the back line and nobody who's willing to take on, who can even take on that assignment as a backline defender if Okongwu's 30 feet away from the rim. And that's what got Jerry Allen. Jerry Allen's just grabbing layups.
Free rise to the
rim. It's basic, it's basic. This is high school stuff.
It's the same issue of the defense is the same issue as the rebounding. If you have your center, whether it's Capella or Okongwu, it doesn't matter who it is. If they're out there on the floor because they have to be, there's nobody under the rim that is worrisome to the opponent. And even with Clint, who's a great rebounder, he can't rebound by himself with a bunch of small guys. He's not capable of just dominating that. So the Hawks right now, just a part of this is scheme based. So part of this is that Quinn is asking these guys to play further out. That's part of it. But the problem with that is right now, without Jalen in particular to rebound on the back line, they went from being above average 3 or 4 years ago on the defensive glass to about average last year to bottom 5 this year in defensive rebounding. And again, part of that is scheme. I think that I would have projected the Hawks to be a little bit worse on the defensive glass this year with how they were going to play. But the combination of that and the loss of Jalen and just the lack of size, they can't rebound. And it's not Quinn talks about this all the time. It's a situation where they have to gain rebound, but there's quite honestly only so much that Trae or DJ or Garrison Matthews can do on the glass. I think Bay competes.
This is not
Brad.
This is not in this team's DNA.
No.
To gang rebound, to play the physical brand of basketball that
and they're trying to preach it. You're right. It's not.
But it's like you're asking guys who have never played this way before, who've never played that type of hard scrabble defensive that. The second the shot goes up, we are moving dudes out the way, and we're tracking the ball, and then we're getting the rebound. That's outside of the bigs. These guys don't do that. They're all a bunch of box out. They try to box out. They do it poorly because they don't put any real pressure, and they don't track the ball. These guys aren't. Rebounding is not a skill. It is a talent. And in regards to the talent of rebounding, outside of Capella, Okongwu, Jalen, and Bruno, this team doesn't have it. DeJounte Murray was professed to be a good rebounder, but we've kind of seen that if it's a contested rebound, he's not getting it.
Well, and he just doesn't have the size. It's another example of positions don't matter that much, but archetypes do. If DeJounte's playing point guard, he's a pretty good rebounder.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If he's playing a wing spot, he's not a good rebounder. DeAndre Hunter is not a good rebounder anywhere, but if he's at the 3, it doesn't kill you. If he's playing the 4, he's a terrible rebounder at the 4. Saddiq Bey is a pretty good rebounder for a 3. He's below average for a 4, and he's playing a lot of 4 this year. So like, I don't mean to make it that simple, but it really is just, it's skill based and it's archetypal, and they don't have. Capella's the only guy actively right now with Jalen out. Capella's the only guy that is above average rebounder for his position. Yep. The only guy. Okongwu playing the 4 probably would be if he's playing the 4, but at the 5 he's not. Obviously, we already know that. So it's kind of simple math.
If Bruno were to play, I think.
No, Bruno
I really like. I'll say this: Bruno was much better on the glass than Okongwu was.
Bruno is a better rebounder than Okongwu. Like
he's just a more physical guy. Like he's just
he's a little bigger too. It's not all size, physical. But he is more physical and more of a bruiser. And look, Bruno, that was part of what made Bruno a potential first round pick. He didn't go in the first round, but he was maybe going to go in the first round of that draft. Is that he had like bonkers rebounding numbers at Maryland? Like it wasn't like he was really rebounding at a high level in college. And that's doesn't always translate, but he's been I'm looking at the numbers right now. Yeah, he's been a consistently pretty good rebounder. Not Capella level, but pretty good at center.
And to me, if I'm Quinn, I'm like, Bruno showed me some good play on both ends. I got to get him some minutes.
Try it again.
Because we got bigger picture. If we could just get some stops, we beat teams by 10 points. Nobody can stop this offense.
Okay, so the Hawks are 4th in the league. It's a good time to transition. So we'll do this now.
It's like so. Go ahead.
It's a great way to wrap this up. All right, that is all for part 1 of this 2-part chat with myself and Tyler Jones. Please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, places like Apple and Spotify, as well as YouTube on the video side. And please tell a friend about the podcast as well. Stay tuned. Part 2 should be available in your feeds of choice right now. And with all that said, we'll see you with part 2. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you all next time.